All right, guys, in this section, we are going to be going over the quote follow-up process in Agency Elephant. Typically, we like to see our users utilizing our pipeline for quote follow-up. The proposal section is already set up so that as you drag people into the proposal column, it will automatically put them into the quote follow-up group, which will trigger the quote follow-up drip campaigns. You can also do this on a one-on-one basis if you want to within a lead profile here. If you want to copy them into that quote follow-up group to trigger it, you can always do that here. If they weren't already in the group, we'd have the ability to put him in there. So let me take him out and show you. So if we want to trigger that one-on-one quote follow-up, you can always do that within the contact view under the action button. Copying and moving leads is how you trigger automations. So you can always put them into the quote follow-up pipeline, or you can do it on a one-on-one basis like that. The other way to trigger that quote follow-up campaign is when you're adding people into the system. So if you're adding people in as a quick add here, and you're adding in the lead information, you have their mobile, email, etc., and you're adding them in, you can always add them straight into the quote follow-up group here. I also recommend you add them into the prospects BFY group to categorize them and hit add. This will trigger that. The last way to do it is over in this green button. If you hit the add pipeline lead, you can add all the lead information, all the value of that quote you're sending out, which is the premium. And then you can put them into that proposal bucket here. You'd come over here and put them into the prospects group, and you'd hit save. And when it saves, it will add that quote follow-up campaign. That is how you trigger quote follow-ups to happen every time. But before you start that process, you really want to make sure you viewed the quote follow-up drip and make sure that it's acceptable for your agency. So if you come over into tools or drips and tools, come into the SMS section. This is how we follow up on drips in the built for you. You can always add an email drip attached to it if you want. But if you come into this drip section, use this little search bar, type quote, and you have your quote follow-up here. To edit it, you're simply going to hit the plus sign. And here is the entire quote follow-up process. After 1 day, the individual gets their first message. The reason we don't send a first message on day 0 is because we don't know what you discussed and what kind of expectations you set in place on that call with the prospect. You could have had the expectation that you're going to bind that this evening, and in that case, you don't need a quote follow-up to go out. But we know that if the quote sits in that pipeline status for at least 24 hours, we need to follow up the next day. And they're just very generic messages like, hey, did you have a chance to review the insurance we discussed? How do you want to move forward? And then as you go down this list, you see it waits 2 days, another 2 days, waits 3 days, waits a week, waits a day, and a day as a last ditch effort. And you can come in here and view that verbiage and edit it accordingly. This is going to grab the customer's name. This is going to grab your name and your agency name and put it into the text for you. And you can come in here and edit these as you see fit. So I highly recommend that you come in and view the follow-up we have, edit some verbiage, and start using this pipeline. Pipeline should be the hub of your Agency Elephant account. So if you're coming into it from a sales standpoint, you need to see these things. You need to track the premium that you're leaving on the table that hasn't been bound, track the premium that has been bound, also track the premium that you've missed that month, okay? One of the really cool features about this proposal status is if a prospect sits in this status for 30 days, it's going to automatically trigger a quotes not closed campaign. And that quotes not closed campaign is over here. The pipeline controls all of those settings for you. So after 30 days, if they haven't bound the account, it's going to start a new drip that says, we never ended up closing this insurance we worked on. What happened? And then it's going to follow up with them again as another last ditch effort. So review those 2 drips. That's quote follow-up BFY and quotes not sold. That's these 2 here, quotes not closed rather. That's these 2 here, and they are triggered from the pipeline. So if you're using the pipeline, it's an easy way to make sure that your quotes get followed up with consistently. Last thing I want to go over, automation is not going to do your entire job. If they are not responding and they're sitting in this status for a period of days, you can always come into this lead profile and manually send out a quick ringless voicemail to the person. If they had a phone number on their account, manually send out a quick voicemail to this person. You can record it personally real quick so you don't get stuck on the phone. You just need to get info to them that you need to get them on the phone. You can say stuff like, hey, hey, Matt, we sent you over the quote a few days ago. It's been a while since we heard back from you on it. How do you want to move forward on it? Give us a call at the office or send us a text message and let us know how to handle this. Talk soon. And you can send that out now or schedule it to go at a specific interval. So as great as drips are to make sure you're following up consistently, I still like to add manual touches into them, manual phone calls. If I haven't heard from this lead in a while, I'm going to call them really quick from my browser and see if we can bind it. That is a great way to make sure that you're adding a little bit of extra effort, which is way less effort than you needed to do previously, because they're already getting the sequence of follow-ups. All right, make sure you edit that drip over in Tools and make sure you use that pipeline to trigger it, or you can use the add pipeline lead here. Just when you do so, make sure you put them in the right status, or you can add them over here and not use the pipeline entirely. Hope that all helps.